We are back, and this is our final video in the boundaries module. So, quick overview of what we've learned all month. The first thing that we learned is that most of our conflict, most of the ugly, nasty feeling conflict that we're going to come into contact with can be headed off by actually just knowing what we want, asking for it preemptively, and by using the rest of that Empathy Essentials protocol that we learned last month, this Rev C kind of protocol, really establishing that compassionate and connected orientation. It just heads off a lot of the conflict that we might otherwise experience. So that's number one. First week, all about just heading off conflict by asking for what you want, making empathy primary, empathy first. So second week, then we started to get into the lights. And this is actually your second tactic, because if it's not just a situation where you can say like, oh, I want this, if you have to have a negotiation, if someone's going to get triggered, if you're likely to get triggered, then you want to preemptively call a yellow light, or you want to notice in the middle and you want to call yellow on yourself and go like, hey, buddy, give yourself some empathy while you're here. This is hard. Or you want to call the red and say, oh, wow, we're getting really fired up. But use an I statement. I'm not going to be able to maintain I want to bring my best self to this conversation. So I got to let you know we're going to need to pause rather than a you statement. That's going to get you down to like 99% of the conflict, disagreement, frustration that we experience in our interpersonal interactions. So all of that work is really important. And then this last week is the boundaries, is about the little 1%. Okay, so the protocol, I'm just going to give you a 6-step protocol. First, say what you want. Okay, so this is, even in a conversation with boundaries, it works better, as we've already talked about, to state things in the positive, let people know exactly what you want. If this is with an employee, if this is with a child, if this is with your husband, if this is with your best friend, if this is with your mother-in-law, I would like you to call before you come and visit. Are you willing to do that? Done. Simple. Sometimes that's all they need. We get mad at them and we muddy the issue, but we could have just asked for what we want. So that's number one. And kind of, we could say number one is a best case scenario. Okay, number two, once you've said what you wanted, you can also, if it needs to be negotiated, determine if your strategy is flexible and you can find a solution that meets everyone's needs, right? So, oh gosh, that mother-in-law one there is going to be hard for me, but she's like, well, I just need to see my grandchildren, and I don't always know I'm going to come over, and sometimes in the neighborhood. Okay, well, I need space and safety, and I need some prep time, and it really dysregulates the grandchildren when you show up. Sometimes we have a plan, and blah 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 blah. So then maybe you could figure out what's on Saturdays. We take the day off on Saturday. On Saturday, you could show up unannounced. Any day during the week. We have to follow this strict plan, or it's going to be really hell for everyone. Please call. What do you think? And you can bargain, you can negotiate like that. Okay. So if you are flexible, then you go on to making requests. Just go back to that Empathy Essentials course, and you learn asking, would you be willing to, would you please, etc., and giving them the chance to choose on your behalf. All right. Then if your strategy is not flexible, so for example, you might say to a person, I can think of no scenario where I would feel comfortable being in a close relationship with you while you're still drinking, right? Or while you continue to go off your meds. I cannot be in a close relationship with you like that. So if your strategy is non-negotiable, you've found your no, okay? And this is where that work came in, of just learning to state your no. You keep drinking, you keep going off your meds, I'm not going to be in a close relationship with you. Okay. Number 4, when necessary, inform the other of the consequences and try to stay out of retribution or coercion. Of course, we would like them to do what we want them to do, but we're taking a stand to not coerce people, to not punish people for not doing what we want. That's just a consequence. It's not a punishment. It's not, oh, because you're like this, I'm not going to hang out with you. It's just the consequence of that behavior. Okay. So that's step 4. Step 5. This is ramping up the intensity, as you can see, from best case scenario to worst case scenario. If individuals are unwilling to hear your firm boundaries, then you employ your anti-narcissist jitsu skills. These are where you determine, okay, is it my job Can I just walk away from this relationship? Do I need to expend any more energy on this person? And then finally, if it is your job, if it's someone you're in a covenant relationship with, an intimate relationship, they're dysregulated, can't regulate themselves. If you need to protect someone else, then you have your three options, really two options. But the keyword is emergency empathy. And we're applying that through the St. Francis method, or you may have to resort to the protective use of force, right? Someone, God forbid, tries to enter your house. You might have to shove them while you lock the door. Normally we don't shove people. In that situation, totally appropriate to shove this person while you lock the door so they don't enter your house. So this is your 5-step protocol. Hopefully it takes everything that we've done and just boils it down. Here are your best to worst case scenarios of how to use compassionate boundaries. So you're going to combine that with the whole work. The whole thing is that we're keeping this connected, compassionate, and now we've added consent-filled orientation. But we're doing that when relationships are difficult. So we've got a best to worst case scenario. We're going to expand on this in the next month. We're going to learn how to relate across differences. There's just some cool research and some really epic techniques that I found. And this as well helps to play into when there's disagreements on how to reach across and build those bridges. We'll talk about triggers, how to diffuse your own, how to help diffuse those of others without just saying you're triggered. We'll talk about confrontations and how to like interrupt when you're called to be a protector. So this is the basic pith of the boundary method. You've got your 6 steps, best case to worst case scenario, and then we get into detail and dialing it into the specific situations that you might run into.